Hey, it's Arroe. Podfest brings together 3 different conversations from musicians to authors, doctors, environmentalists, or cooks in their own kitchen. These are real people with real stories. Podfest 67. We kick things off with a way of life that starts with a seed, the beautiful and wonderful pistachio with Dr. Mike Rousell. Then we're going to get a free tour of what it's like to be a movie author with Dwayne Epstein. Our third conversation is all about locating peace and calm, and who better to be our guide than actor Ed Begley Jr. This is Podfest 67. Good morning, Dr. Mike. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Fantastic. I got to set it up. I work at a grocery store. I know how many pistachios are going across my little scanner. The people love pistachios. They do it for health purposes. They do it for enjoyment. They do it because it mixes in with a lot of great things.
Yes, definitely. It's like the perfect marriage of healthy and delicious.
What is it about this little seed that people really, it's almost like they crave it and they have to have it?
It's amazing because they're so delicious, and with every passing year, we get new research showing us additional health benefits that we didn't know about. And so there is really something special about the pistachio nut. And as a snack food and as a food in America and actually across the world, American-grown pistachios are becoming more and more popular year after year. So it's pretty exciting.
Yeah, people have told me that they eat pistachios because it helps them with inflammation, which I think is just an awesome natural thing to do.
Yeah, so there's a new pistachios to help with inflammation is really supported by some new research out of Cornell University, which shows that the antioxidants found in pistachios rival those in traditional foods we would think of as high in antioxidants. Blueberries, red wine, pomegranate, cherries. Pistachios have the antioxidant power just with those foods. And eating antioxidants in our diet is one way to help control inflammation. And so they definitely fit in that category as a great anti-inflammatory food.
Well, when you say antioxidant, right away I'm thinking of my cardiologist who said I had to have a lot of that stuff after my heart attack. So I invite people that have had heart issues to study more about pistachios, adding them to their daily diet.
Yeah, definitely. And, I think advice that people have generally heard is, I'm sure maybe you've heard this too, is to eat a rainbow of foods. Mm-hmm. And part of this is so that you can get a variety of antioxidants in your diet, because different colors in foods are reflective of different antioxidants. So if you look at a pistachio nut, you'll see there's yellow, there's green, there's even a little purple, like a dark blue. These are all due to different antioxidants in the pistachio nut. So pistachios are a key part of the equation of eating a rainbow of food.
Well, I love the way that the makers and everybody has come together to create different flavors of them as well. They'll put, because there's so many different bags of pistachios at our grocery store, and everybody picks out their favorite flavor.
Yeah, the flavored nuts are definitely becoming more and more popular, which is great because I think it gives people more options. Consider me maybe a purist. I like them, traditional, roasted, lightly salted, but it is nice that there's different flavors for everybody. And
how do you feel about with the shell, without the shell? That right there is like a borderline for a lot of people too.
Yeah, well, I like the in the shell because it holds me back a little bit. I know I could definitely eat a lot more pistachios when they're not in the shell. But I also like the process, the shelling process. It helps slow down the eating, helps slow down the snacking. Mindful eating is kind of an important buzzword in health right now, helps increase that. So I generally go as a snack in the shells that I have to shell, but I also love them in yogurt too. And so getting them out of the shell so I can just put them in the yogurt is also wonderful.
Yeah, and one of the things that I've learned about the pistachios is the fact that when you talk about mindful eating and everything like that, they actually get in there and help our cells, don't they?
Yeah, they definitely do. Being high in antioxidants, what antioxidants do in our diet is they go and they fight these things called free radicals. And free radicals can accelerate the aging process in our brains and in our skin. We experience that as not being as sharp mentally, maybe getting more wrinkles. And we eat antioxidants in our diet to help neutralize those free radicals and protect our bodies from inflammation or oxidative damage. And with this new research showing pistachios being a really high active source of antioxidants, it makes them a powerful tool for us in that area.
You know, being at that grocery store, the one thing that I know inside my heart that most people have no clue what it takes to put that pistachio inside that grocery store. But in reality, this is a united American front. 865 growers, Doctor? I mean, my God, you can't say anything but united.
Yeah, American pistachios are really amazing. You know, they're primarily grown in California, a little bit in Arizona, a little bit in New Mexico. But these farmers, you know, they produce an incredible crop that is loved across the world. And it's really amazing that in just this small segment of America, these farmers can get together and really fuel and feed the entire globe.
Man, where can people go to find out more information? Because our conversation is just a conversation starter. So where can they go to really start doing their research and growing a stronger body?
So if you go to AmericanPistachios.org, there's a ton of great resources there. You know, we've talked about the farming process there. You can learn how to incorporate in your diet more of these health benefits, because I feel like we've just scratched them. And then I have a lot of health and nutrition content on there that I've created. So AmericanPistachios.org is a great place to start.
Love it, man. Please come back to this show anytime in the future. The door is always going to be open for you, Doctor.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. I'd love to come back.
You be brilliant today, okay, sir?
Yeah, you too.
Good morning. How are you doing today, sir?
Oh, I'm very well, Arroe. Thank you. How are you?
Doing fantastic. I just wish my father were sitting right here beside me right now, because, I mean, this was his movie. It was over and over again. We did it at the drive-in. We did it at a theater. We did it on television. And then for you to have this book now, somehow, some way, his spirit is in this room.
Oh, excellent. Glad to hear it.
What led you into this? Is it because there's a lot of questions about it? Because, I mean, that was 1967 was a time period where a lot of people were looking for an escape, and yet this movie changed a lot of things.
Oh, it certainly did. As the director of the film, Robert Aldridge, said at the time, no, actually a few years after the film came out, he said, it's the result of a perfect storm. We could never have guessed that the young people on college campuses would be protesting the escalation of the Vietnam War. We never would have known the Vietnam War would be escalating. Or World War II veterans who were very much still alive would appreciate a film such as this. And so it all came together in a kind of a confluence to make it the #1 film in the country in 1967 and the 6th highest grossing film in the history of MGM.
Wow.
So with that in mind, and like I've said a number of times, it's kind of resonated through the years, and it's still as popular as ever.
Why did it become such a binge watch like my father did? Was it because my father fought in World War II? I often wonder if he saw something in this movie that helped him with his PTSD.
I would imagine so. And it's interesting you mentioned the PTSD, because prior to writing this book on the Dirty Dozen, I had written a book on a biography on Lee Marvin called Lee Marvin Point Blank, who definitely suffered from PTSD. He had every symptom you can imagine. And that's why he was often drawn to such films and characters as John Reisman in the Dirty Dozen. And I think for World War II veterans, actually pretty much, I'm not a World War II veteran. I've never been in the service. But I'm a huge fan of the film. And I think it's based on how well made the film is. And also, it's one of those movies that one of the things I think that makes it a classic is that every time you see it, you see something you hadn't seen before. Yep. And it just, you want to keep watching it over and over again to see what you missed the last time. And that, in my opinion, is what makes it classic.
Well, I'll tell you what. I mean, since diving into this book, I mean, I'm going to watch The Dirty Dozen again. I really am, because I'm gonna read the book and feel the book and see the true story. Then I'm going to go back in and watch the movie. And like you said, I'm going to see something totally different.
Right on. Right on. Glad to hear that. I'll give you a real good example. I was talking to a friend of mine recently who had said, when I told him I had written this book, and he said, "That's great. I'm gonna watch the movie and then I'm gonna read your book." And I said, "You know what, Jim? You may want to do it the other way around,
right?
Because if you read the book first, that'll prepare you for things you hadn't seen before, even though you'd seen the movie." Yep. Real quick example. You know that great scene when Lee Marvin goads Clint Walker into stabbing him with a knife, and when they were rehearsing that scene, Robert Aldridge had pulled Clint Walker's thumb while they were walking and talking. And the night before, Clint Walker had cut his thumb making dinner. And he didn't say anything, but Lee Marvin kept tapping Bob Aldridge on the shoulder, going, Bob. And Aldridge went, what is it, Lee? And he goes, Clint cut his finger last night. It's got 10 stitches in there. And he went, oh, geez, I'm sorry. Now, what's interesting is Clint Walker told me that story. Once I knew that, I watched the DVD of The Dirty Dozen, and I slowed that scene down when Lee Marvin pulls the scabbard off the knife, and you can see this big black line on Clint Walker's thumb.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. Check it out.
Oh, my God. Cool. So who was Major Reisman modeled after? Because, I mean, this didn't just happen, and this was not inside the author's imagination. He had to have been modeled after someone.
I didn't interview Mick Nathanson. I interviewed I did speak to his son, and but Mick Nathanson was indeed interviewed by a friend of mine. Nathanson died, I believe, in 2016. A friend of mine interviewed him about 3 or 4 years earlier, and the interview was never published, and she gave it to me. And I was able to get a lot of great exclusive information. She didn't ask him about that particular, several of the other characters she would say who they were based on. Now, the entire book was a work of fiction, but Mick Nathanson's son, Michael, said that John Reisman was based on a friend of his father's that he had known in the military, but he didn't go into detail on who it was.
Wow.
So there's that. Yeah.
Wow. The name of the book is Killing Generals, which I giggled when I first saw it when I was holding it in my hand. And the reason why is because right away you go to that scene in the movie where that's part of the movie.
Right. Absolutely. It's it was funny when I was working on what it would be titled, and I mentioned to the editor what I was thinking of calling it. The editor started laughing, going, that's funny, because if you didn't come up with that, I would have. I was thinking of the same title.
So now, do you feel like you're a historian? Do you feel like you're an archaeologist or a professor? Because when you release a book like this, you're actually introducing this to a new generation of people who are going to watch the movie, because they'll binge watch anything. They'll watch a film, an old one, which really is new to them because they've never seen it before.
Yeah, well, that's one of my favorite quotes of all time. Lauren Bacall famously said, a classic isn't a classic to somebody who'd never seen it before.
Right. It's
just a movie they hadn't seen yet. And she said, I'm actually jealous for somebody who hadn't seen a great movie yet. And that's how I think. I don't know if I would consider myself an archaeologist. I'm maybe a publicist for my own work. But I do absolutely love introducing favorite films or TV shows or books to somebody who may not be familiar with it, and them getting the same charge as I got when I was introduced to a given film, book, or TV show. So, yeah, I love it. I absolutely love it. As I once told a friend of mine, my favorite thing to do is being able to talk to people whose work I love about the work I love. Interviewing some of the important filmmakers of our time is the greatest joy. When I was working on the Lee Marvin book, I got to interview Sam Fuller, Stanley Kramer, John Frankenheimer, Woody Strode. Oh my gosh, so many great people who unfortunately are no longer with us. But same thing with Killing Generals. I interviewed the producer, Ken Hyman, 92 and still alive. I interviewed Donald Sutherland. I interviewed Clint Walker before he passed, and just a whole bunch of wonderful people about the work. And the stories I was told were fascinating and brand new.
You talk about Clint Walker before he passed. That to me, we're blessed, dude, in the way that we get to capture a moment in history, because once they're gone, what we did inside those conversations is preserved forever, and we share it with the future.
That's right. That might sound a little highfalutin and esoteric or what have you, but that's exactly how I feel about it.
Yeah,
we've captured a moment for all time.
Yeah. So there's so much star power in this movie. Is there a side of you that's going, why wasn't John Wayne part of this?
There's a side of me that kind of wipes his forehead and goes, thank God John Wayne wasn't in this. Now, listen, don't get me wrong. I'm a John Wayne fan. I love some of his films. I thought he was incredible in The Searchers and The Quiet Man and True Grit and many of his films. But the problem with John Wayne is, especially as he got older, and it would have been within that time period too.
Yep.
John Wayne, his characters always had to have them be you're either for us or you're against us. Okay. And if you're against us, you're dead meat.
Yeah.
And he would have turned that into the Dirty Dozen. Mm-hmm. And because he turned down the Dirty Dozen, by the way, he was offered the role. What he wound up making instead was the movie The Green Berets.
Ooh.
Which is, that's classic John Wayne. Mm-hmm. It was his answer to those who were against the Vietnam War. So there you go. He had done that kind of thing before in his career. When he saw High Noon, which he hated, he thought it was communist propaganda.
Oh, yeah.
He got together with Howard Hawks and decided to make a movie called Rio Bravo, which was like the answer to High Noon. And I like Rio Bravo. I think it's a damn good movie. I think he's great in it. But the Green Berets, not so much.
Dude, I want to thank you for taking the time out of your own personal life to share these stories with us, because you really do teach us to look behind the frame of the movie, to look for things, to understand the purpose and the plan from the directors all the way through the actors. I mean, that's a special gift you've got, sir.
Oh, gosh, thank you for calling it that. Thank you for saying it. I appreciate it. I'm humbled and complimented. Thank you.
Well, please come back to this show anytime, dude. I'm a movie freak, and I love talking about movies.
Oh, lovely. I would love to do that. Definitely. Anytime.
Well, you be brilliant today, okay, sir?
Okay. You as well.
I came to you 2 minutes early. You'll have till just before 10 after with the great Ed Begley Jr.
And you are so absolutely right. It is the great Ed Begley Jr. How are you doing today, sir?
Very good, Arroe. How about you?
Absolutely fantastic. This is my kind of book, Ed. I have spent an entire lifetime reading books like this, and I always tell people, don't go into my Kindle because you're going to see a side of me that you don't know.
That's great. I love reading myself, and I'm so glad you liked it, Arroe. That means the world to me.
Well, tranquility is that one place of mindfulness that starts with awareness, and to jump onto that path is a life changer. But do you feel in your heart that it's like, okay, now how do I teach this or share this with somebody else who's on a path?
Well, we think it's so difficult. We think we want to get enlightenment. We already are enlightened. As children we are, and we need to get back to that, to just accept that we are. All we have now, each of us, Arroe, is this moment right now. Here it comes, this one,
yep,
where we have everything that we need. We don't have everything that we want. Most people never will get that, but you do often have everything that you need. And that's where I like to live my life, in the present as best I can. We must remember the past and plan for the future a bit, but you don't want to spend too much time there. Live in the now. This is it, as Alan Watts so brilliantly wrote years ago.
This is so my kind of conversation. I feel so blessed to even be doing this today with you, because it's like this is how I live my life. Living in the presence of right now. I do a thing called stream thinking, which is, okay, what's moving through me right now? Write about it. Do you do the same kind of exercises?
I do. I try to, really enjoy and be present for the moments that I cherish in my life. And, I'm very lucky. I have wonderful kids and grandkids, and certainly with them, with the people and the things that I love in my life, films I like, music that I like, places that I like. I drink that in. I drink deeply from the cup of life when those things are so wonderful, and try to get through the times where things are more painful.
The book we're talking about is To the Temple of Tranquility and Step on It. I love that you put that on there, and step on it. In other words, bring it into your own universe and use it as a tool.
Right. It's important that we do that. But I also went a little too far with the step on it notion, in that I tried to rush it. You can't rush serenity. You have to just open your heart and soul to it. And you certainly can't rush it by trying to get serenity from a bottle of Stoli or some sort of drug or what have you. Yep. You can do it, but it doesn't last. It doesn't work properly. That's not the way to find enlightenment, is through, chemicals or liquids.
When you sat down to put these paragraphs together, did you go through like a transition period? Because I'm a firm believer that many people don't understand what a transition is. We're all going through multiple personality changes every minute on the clock. But to be a writer and to think of the future reader, what was that like?
The only future readers I was thinking about the time when I wrote this was my family, my children and grandchildren. I started to record these things with my daughter, Hayden. She started on her iPhone saying, tell me that story again about how your grandparents came over on the boat. And tell me the story about, you and Jack Nicholson doing that movie. And tell me the story about Marlon Brando and the Electric Eels. And I started telling these stories just so my family would have an archive of it. And then I went, wait a minute, there might be something here that others might want to read outside of the family. Yep. And such was the case.
You know, your story with Marlon Brando touched me, because I had maybe 15 or 20 seconds with Marlon in Billings, Montana, because his trailer was, they were filming the movie Missouri Breaks, and what I felt.
I went up and visited that movie. I might have met you up there.
Oh,
that's
my
funny.
God!
Billings, Montana. I drove up there in my Toyota Land Cruiser to visit Jack and to visit Marlon and to visit Harry Dean Stanton and Fred Forrest. That's amazing. You were there in beautiful Billings.
Yeah.
I camped out along the Yellowstone River there.
Oh my God. Yes, absolutely. You guys were yes. What a moment.
That's funny. And back then there was no big security detail on a movie set.
Nope.
You could just, I drove up, I asked around in town, where are they filming that? Because I wanted to surprise all my friends on the movie. Oh, you go down here, turn right, then go left at the highway. And I just showed up in the movie and said, hi, which is Jack Nicholson's trailer? Over there.
That's it.
Jack, it's Beggs. Beggs, what are you doing here, man? I thought I'm camping out in the Yellowstone River. I wanted to say, come on in, Beggs. A different era.
And to me, it's a real river. I mean, it's got the rocks out there, and it's got that sound that fills the night air. I mean, there's just something romantic about the Yellowstone River.
There is something quite romantic about it. And now, I don't know how you feel about it, but I'm very happy that they reintroduced wolves to Yellowstone,
yes.
The park there, what have you. It's been good for everything. Every part of the ecosystem has benefited from that key species in the web of life that has been quite beneficial to Yellowstone and surrounding areas.
You're speaking my street on that, because I have a forest here in South Charlotte that what happened is in 1992, I knew in my heart that it was time to replenish it. The hawks and the owls that come within 6 feet of me, it's almost like we have this beautiful relationship. So I'm with you on the wolf just as much as I'm with these hawks and owls returning to this forest.
I agree. There's so many important pieces in the web of life. You have to ask yourself, how many rivets can you lose from an airplane before it ceases to fly? My friend Paul Ehrlich wrote that years ago, and these rivets are the different species that we're losing. At some point, you lose 6 rivets from an airplane, or 16, or some number that someone who makes airplanes can tell you, but the plane will crash. And that's what we're up against now. We're seeing things about to crash with all the damage from the storms and the wildfires, because we have to do something about climate change, and species loss is part of that. But we can heal. We've proven it. The Cuyahoga River does not catch fire outside Cleveland anymore. We had lots of huge amounts of smog back when I was growing up. There's nothing like that anymore. It's not nearly as bad in most of LA. There's still a challenge around the ports of Long Beach and Los Angeles, and near the fulfillment centers. We're going to help those people that are still breathing dirty air. But to a large extent, even though we have 4 times the cars and millions more people, there's a fraction of the smog.
A couple of weeks ago, I was blessed with an opportunity to talk with a couple that wrote a book about Disney wanting to create a winter wonderland in California. And they said that it was the environmentalists that stopped it. Right away in that moment, I felt Ed had to have been a part of this. Because, were you?
I was not an active part of it, but I supported their protection of these key areas there. There's plenty of ski areas open to people, and there's lots of that's available. Yep. We don't have a lot of protected open space the way we need to keep the ecosystem stable. So I was in favor of that, and that's when you destroy something created by man, it's called vandalism. Yep. You destroy something created by nature, it's called progress, and I don't think that's real progress.
What's one lesson that you have learned in life that you feel it's like, oh man, this came into me and I've been able to help not preach it, but teach it or share it with somebody who can move on their own way?
Well, it feels good to live it, and the one thing I heard a dear friend told me was, live simply, so that others can simply live. Oh, my
God. Listeners need to know that they need to buy the book In the Way of Knowing inside their soul, that this is all recycled paper. And that just charges up my imagination, because I love the texture of paper. And to hear that you recycled it is just amazing to my plan and purpose here.
Thank you. Hachette Book Groups was great with that. It was one of the things I asked for, and they were happy to accommodate me there. wonderful people at the Hachette Book Group.
Now, on your lifelong search for wisdom, does that tell me as a writer that you were a journal writer as well, and you kept great notes along the way?
I did not.
Wow.
I did not keep great notes at all, but I do have these appointment books. I could look back and go, yes, as I thought that was 1975. I drove up to Billings, Montana to visit some friends, and that was 1989. I worked on a movie called She-Devil, and that was, and I have all these different bookmarks, if you will, but I'm also still pretty good, even at my advanced age. I have these bookmarks in my head, too, that I can tell you when a lot of things happen. I'm not like Mary Lou Penner, where I have that level of memory at all. She has a photographic memory, but I can remember a good deal because of these, I'll call them bookmarks of time throughout my life.
Do you think of that as a superpower, or do you think of it as just a blessing?
It's a blessing, and I've been given many. I live in a land of tremendous gratitude because of how lucky I am to be born Ed Begley's son. I won the lottery, and I didn't even buy a ticket. He was a great father, and I got into a great business, and it helped being his son, in immeasurable ways. People, number one, remembered my name when I'd go on a job interview, and second, they had something to talk about. There was kind of always a positive, hey, I loved your dad. We worked together on a Philco Playhouse, and we did a craft theater presentation show once, and he was a great guy, and top of page 8, Eddie, good luck. They're kind of rooting for me. So how bad is that? It's wonderful. I was a very lucky man, and I continue that luck to this day.
Well, we are very lucky readers, and your family is very lucky as well, because a lot of people do not write out their memoirs in the way that you have, because it's almost like, I think I can go back just to my grandparents, but I know nobody before that. Nobody ever spoke of it. So the fact that you releasing this book is such a gift, and I hope it inspires people to start jotting down their own journeys.
Me too. I figured I'd better do it now, Arroe, because I wasn't sure if I could remember it next year.
That's right. That's right. Please come back to this show anytime in the future. The door is always going to be open for you.
Thank you so much, Arroe. I'll do just that.
Well, you be brilliant today, and I'll see you in Billings someday, okay?
I hope so. It's beautiful there.
Yes, it is.